venture capital, golden ticket, or giant Ponzi scheme?
Who wouldn't want a piece of that magical money showering pie? Let's get ready for UnicornPrn, a podcast for founders who roll their eyes at phrases like "we're killing it" and "changing the world."
We riff about all the things you wish you could say out loud but can't or won't, like investor horror stories, founder mistakes, and bloated valuations.
The media has perpetuated this addiction to unicorn porn.
Nobody says if you take money, you have to constantly be raising money.
Before reality hits in Silicon Valley, companies exit.
I used to feel embarrassed that I wanted a lifestyle business.
Warning, these unfiltered conversations are highly opinionated, brutally honest, and politically incorrect. Please stop listening now if you're easily offended.
UnicornPrn is brought to you by Lloyd Lobo, Wall Street Journal bestselling author and co-founder of Boast AI, and Melissa Kwan, co-founder and CEO at eWebinar.
Today, we're diving headfirst into all the crap that VCs spew at entrepreneurs. So if you've ever tried raising capital, your eyes might be rolled to the back of your head.
Time to bust out the VC to English dictionary. We're going to decode a whole bunch of innovative solutions and scalable growth. Let's do it. The first pet peeve that I have a lot is everyone has a contact us form on their website, which should really read contact us if you want, but we only take warm intros. So, there's this love-hate relationship between VCs taking cold emails and the unwritten rule that they only mostly talk to founders who have warm intros. So what's your take on that?
I mean, honestly, being in the metropolitan center of startups, even as a little shitty founder, I never had issues getting warm intros. And you know why? Because everyone else is looking for a warm intro. So I was kind of in this hub, and you being from the Valley as well, it doesn't hurt me to make an intro. If I meet someone, they know me, and then next time I can make someone else an intro. So it was never an issue for me, but I do notice that as well. The thing is, not everyone is as social as me, going to events and things like that, right? What's the point of having, emails listed on the website or contact form listed on the website? That reminds me, though, where I used to follow SaaStr. That was my resource when I first started. And I remember Jason Lemkin wrote a blog about the best cold email he'd ever received. And I remember thinking, oh, people actually read those those cold emails, but I think he might be the only one.
He might be. There might be a few people that have done investments off of cold email. I know Jason specifically, given he's a friend, been a mentor through my journey. He has 2 unicorns that came straight out of that, right? And it's such a good email. I help X customer get Y outcome through Z 10X product. Here's my revenue. Here's my growth rate. Here's my gross margin. Here's my retention. I read everything that you write on SaaStr. Here's my favorite post. When can we chat?
But that's a good email for anyone, even if you have a warm intro.
Right? So when he said that to me a few years ago, and then when I left the day-to-day of Boast and I came into free time, I used to make a lot of investor intros. I think the last 2 years, I must have made 100 plus investor intros. And so now what I just send people, and I wrote about this on LinkedIn, I put a template. Use this template and send me your startup's blurb, right? Describe your startup in the form of this template. So we help X customer get to Y outcome leveraging Z 10X feature. Here's my revenue. Here's my growth rate. Here's my gross margin. Here are my big logo customers. And why you want an intro to particular VC. Because a lot of founders, what they do is they just reach out and they're like, make this intro.
Yeah, that irks me the wrong way. Why are you making me do the work?
Don't make me do the work.
Yeah.
So now I point them to my LinkedIn post, which did really well. I think it had 100,000 plus views and thousands of people liking that. But nonetheless, that was from my experience because people are always reaching out. And I'm like, man, I have a startup to run. But yeah, now I came into some free time. Yeah. So now you're bombarding me.
Because you want to be helpful.
Yeah, everyone wants to be helpful. But nonetheless, what's even worse than that is people just sending blind intros. I get blind intros all the time. And
hate that.
The quickest way to blow your relationship, right? Because it's a circle of trust. A referral is a circle of trust. The quickest way to blow your relationship with somebody is send blind intros. So never do that. Use a template.
Like in what context? So is someone like, hey, Lloyd, meet my friend. Can you introduce him to Sequoia?
Yeah. Or even worse, they will literally reach out to a VC in their network. Now, I've done a number of angel investments, right? To be like, hey, we think you should invest in this founder, and they CC the founder, talk to him.
That's so annoying.
Like,
that is so annoying.
Did you not check with me? This happened to me recently now a couple of times.
It's such a cop-out way to just get rid of someone.
It's lazy,
it's lazy.
And don't do it. Recently, I got the same person send me 3 intros back to back to back saying, hey, I think this startup is good. You should consider investing in them like an obligation. And they CC'd. So the first thing I said is, immediately I said, hey, I'm no longer angel investing. and I brushed it off. I threw it back and I replied all to that email. And it's like, worse is you don't even respond, right? Like, so makes you look bad. So you made this blind intro. Yeah. And you irk somebody making the blind intro and they just
But that is annoying even when money's not involved.
Yeah.
That is annoying in a business context.
Anything.
With customers, with like, oh, Melissa, can you talk to my friend? And then what am I supposed to do now?
You're obligating me to speak with somebody and it's lazy. Do double opt-in. What double opt-in is you send me an email, right? If somebody asks you for an intro to me or Melissa, say, let me check with them if they're okay with the intro. Number 1, what's the context? Why do you want to connect with them? I don't have the time. Nobody has the time. And I'm not trying to be arrogant here, right? I'd rather, if I'm doing nothing, chilling in Dubai right now because I left San Francisco, and my time is for my family. After 10 years of slogging through multiple startups, my time is for my kids and my family. So if you want to take away that time, I think the most important thing is not being frivolous, right? Like be direct. This is what I want to connect you with. Saying I want to pick your brains is the laziest request. And number 2, just say, you know what, I'm going to check with Lloyd or Melissa and say, I love XYZ founder and they need advice on this specifically. Would you be open to spending 20 minutes with them and sharing some advice?
Another thing that I've heard VCs say is, oh, send me your deck. Like, say like you have an intro, oh, send me their deck. No one's going to send you their deck. Like if they know anything about the startup industry, no one's going to send you their deck. But I have some founders who are like, oh, here it is. I'm like, please don't do that. Like, do you have an executive summary? Like, don't share anything that you wouldn't share publicly. Like, just imagine anything you send will be sent to everybody else.
Definitely. But here's 2 sides to the story, right? Because I think maybe our friend Jason Lemkin here is a little bit of an anomaly. He's like, man, get to the point. I'm busy. I got thousands of emails, right? Like, don't skirt around the issue that I want advice from you when you're raising money, which is good, right? Like, ask for the Pitbull song, right? Ask for money, get advice. Ask for advice, get money twice. It's like old, it's stale. It's like, get to the point, man. Here's my revenue, here's my growth rate, here's my traction. We help X customer get Y outcome using Z10X feature. Here are logos. And he's like, get to the point. But Jason even says like, hey, send me the deck. I don't care. But a lot of the times what I do, right, when I'm making intros, one, I do double opt-in. I reach out to the VC saying, hey, I really like these founders. I know them. And here's a little bit about them. I send a 2-sentence blurb. I never send the deck because I know nobody flips through it anyway. And the thing is, if we send the deck, then it reduces the chances
of getting the meeting.
The meeting, right? Like they know everything. And when you read a deck, you may misconceive a few things. So just tease out the highlights of that deck. And if the revenue, the growth rate, the traction, the industry, the founders, the logos doesn't pique your interest, then that's not for you, right? But if it piques your interest, then you take the meeting, you go through the deck. So I think that's the approach. But there's 2 sides to it. There are some investors who are like super impatient or just don't have the time. They're like Jason Lemkin. He runs a massive community of 500,000 people and he's getting hit all the time. He's like, listen, man, just get straight to the point. And if I like the teaser, then I'll read your deck. And if I read your deck, then I'll set up a meeting for more.
I mean, I don't mean don't share any information. So what I've done in the past is I just take my deck and I distill it into a 1-page executive summary.
And that's great.
And it's 10 points because Guy Kawasaki's 10 slides. It's like problem, solution, competitive advantage, numbers, growth, projections, everything in 1 page only.
Everyone lands in the same place, up and to the right, as 1% of $1 trillion TAM. Right? Guy Kawasaki has like
It's his
now
fault.
he's the chat GPT for decks at that time. Now
Yeah.
all the decks look the same. But nonetheless, I think you got to just weigh it out and, distill the deck to one slider. But I even distill it down to a few bullet points and send an email, because this is how I think. I know they're even busier than I am. I skim through email, and if I have to scroll one,
Yeah.
you've lost my interest. Can you get me interested before I scroll? So I think we've made the point here. Another thing that I hear a lot is just from VCs or advisors in general is don't give up control.
Yeah. Didn't work well for Steve Jobs, though. Even Steve Jobs can get kicked out.
Anyone can get kicked out. You were watching the whole episode with Travis, right? And
Yeah. Super pumped.
it didn't work for him either.
He tried, though. He really tried to hang on. I think he had like super shares. And I mean, if they wanted to figure out a way to remove you because you're disruptive or whatnot, which in that case, I think he was, they could find a way to do it.
And Uber turned a profit finally, right now with the new CEO. Sometimes, early founders, for the most, are pirates and romantics. But pirates, we're sticking elbows, we're poking fingers, we're doing whatever we can to get the job done, right? Faking it until you're making it. Eventually, though, there comes a time where you have to graduate to going from pirate to Navy. Like pirate, keep getting loot, and Navy's scale C's. And if you keep doing pirate tactics when you're at the Navy phase, then you irk a whole bunch of people. So there's two sides to this. But don't give up control. Okay, you raised your first round of funding, second round of funding. You didn't give up any control, no board seat. You have no obligation other than a moral obligation to even send investor updates. What do you think happens? I have a friend who raised like $20 million during the height of the COVID boom, or so-called boom. And founder arrogance, it's a founder's market. Didn't give away board seats, just a couple founders on the board. And this VC actually could have been quite helpful because this VC had 3 exits before and super connected. But these founders stretched their arrogance. They would send updates willy-nilly. Eventually, this company shut down. Of course, sad, but the VC had to write it off. The VC could have been helpful, though. But the thing is, if they don't have skin in the game outside of their investment, like an emotional skin in the game, there's two sides to everything. Right? Until the day robots are doing business with robots, every business will be part data, part emotion. If there's no emotional attachment, you don't reach out to me. Now as a seed investor, I got maybe 100 investments. Do I have the time to chase you? Probably not. I could have been helpful if you engaged me, but I had not even the slightest involvement here. No board seat, no board observership, no updates. So this is a place where sometimes not giving up any control can bite you because you got disengaged VCs and then you eventually shut down, right?
I mean, do most VCs ask for a board seat?
Most VCs, at least,
or is it up to a certain amount?
I think at Series A, definitely it's a board seat, but I've seen Series A, man, during the pandemic, a lot of stuff happened. Founders turned fraudsters, or borderline fake it till you make it. Board seats weren't being given. Massive secondaries were happening. There's a whole bunch of things went down, right? And in a market like this where it's a founder's market, they try to edge one to the VC. Ultimately, though, any relationship is a give-take, it's alignment, and it's partnership. The other side to this equation, though, is no matter how much control you give, just make sure the founders have board control. Because when you raise money, there's two sides happening. As maybe a young founder, although you have majority control, you may feel just obligated to listen to the investor. And a lot of investors have not started companies. They're giving anecdotal advice. And the worst thing is to run your business with anecdotes, right? You got to reason from your customer base and first principles and take it from the bottom up. So you get all this anecdotal advice. And now if you give up control, you have an armchair analyst potentially running your company. So I think it's important to balance. You want the right people around the table, the right investors who can help you, but don't give up so much control that you lose your company and now somebody else is sort of running it from the side of their desk.
Yeah. Another one that I used to hear a lot, which would drive me insane, is as soon as I pitch my idea, well, doesn't this already exist? Or like, oh, what if Google builds it, kind of in the same vein? And I'm like, well, of course it exists, like in some form, right? Even if not a direct competition, like I'm not going to do something that's blue ocean, but it would just drive me crazy because I'm like, how do I answer this? But it was said with like such a negative connotation, like, oh, like why are you doing that? Doesn't this exist?
And then you just keep pivoting and sharing a new idea,
Exactly.
a new idea.
I mean, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't smart enough to know how to answer that.
I think it's not smart enough, right? Like you're young, you're naive, it's your first thing, and you go to these events and you pitch your idea to get feedback. And you're like, isn't somebody already doing it? And that's that's such a bad word. And, and you just feel like, oh, I got to be novel and I got to be the first to market. Like, how can anyone even tell me there's somebody else with that sort of disdain on their face?
Yeah. That's the thing. That's disdain, right? But if you think more about it, well, how many CRMs are there? How many marketing automation software is there? How many AI software is there? How many ChatGPT wrappers are there? So I guess you're right. Like I was young thinking like, and I would be scared, right? Because there's these people in position of authority asking me these legitimate questions that I'd never heard before. So then I'm like trying to pivot my idea on the spot to make it seem like I'm unique.
Yeah.
But I think now I realize that what they're looking for is not a unique answer. Just what they were looking for is how I would respond to it by saying how I am different than what's out there. What do you think?
Definitely. You know what? What's funny is I've seen founders make this mistake of pivoting their idea so much that it gets so obscure that you're in a market now of 10 people, but you're unique, right? It's laughable. But that's exactly right? Just because Google does it, or what if Google does it, or what if there's somebody else? Any big company, now having worked with big company execs, they move at a pace that's very different. They have their priorities laid out for like a year, 2 years. They're not going to pry at the street corner and say, oh, this startup is working on this idea. Let's just jump and steal it and kill their market. Nobody does that. And even if you look at like, say, Google Analytics, for example, right? Well, there's how many analytics products are there? There's Pendo, and there's like Kiss Metrics that was there that, is sort of not doing as well. But Amplitude, right? Amplitude went public at 1.2 billion. For every product, there's 5 other products that come out. And they position, I think the key is here in positioning, they position to their target market and they make a place for themselves. If it's so obscure that nobody exists, right, nothing exists for it, nobody wants to take a chance on you. Haven't you experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I know now that competition is good because it allows you to differentiate. In fact, our product, eWebinar, that we're working on now, only exists because other products on the market weren't good enough. So I think competition is a good thing, but I think most VCs will ask that question. Doesn't this exist? And you have to just be prepared as to how to answer that and not like change your idea on the spot.
I think VCs get less credit than they deserve. A lot of VCs haven't been entrepreneurs. But the one thing you got to commend them on is they're masters of studying data and trying to spot patterns, right? That's how they built their careers. So they research and they research and they research. They're not asking you a question because they're stupid or they want to make you look stupid. They just want to know how you think. And they're not going to think for you because a big part of how you answer is telling to them how you're going to navigate a situation as a founder, right? So if you look at this, what if Google builds it, is the perfect example, or does anything else not exist? Now, similar to you, I worked on a couple of startups. One was a chatbot in 2013 before chatbot was a thing. And one was an AI sales assistant in 2015 before it was a thing. The hardest thing is begging people to give you a chance because they're like, what is this? Is it going to even work? What if you sort of, spit garbage and gibberish to my customers? I'm going to lose customers. It's very hard to be first mover and win. But you look at like for Napster, there's Spotify and iTunes, right? Napster is no longer here. Or for the MP3 player, like Apple came out with the iPod and then everything turned into the phone. So I think being a second mover is actually better in most cases.
I think so too. I'm experiencing that right now. What about VCs that say, I don't invest in this category, and then they turn around and invest in this category? Like my last startup was in real estate. I remember being at this VC dinner, And, obviously I'm trying to pitch. I'm always trying to pitch, right? And he's like, oh yeah, there's a company in our portfolio that's real estate. So we don't really invest in anything else in real estate anymore. And I'm looking on my phone, looking at their portfolio, and there's like multiple companies in real estate. I'm like, dude, just tell me you're not interested in my company. You don't have to lie about that.
This one gets me, right? And there's a few scenarios here how it plays out. One, they're literally not interested. Whatever you said didn't cause them to sort of lean in. And they don't want to say no. See, this is one of the things I've noticed being in Silicon Valley for 15 years is people are afraid to flat out say no because everything is based on sort of happenstance and serendipity. What if you come off an asshole to a founder who then later goes on and starts a multi-billion-dollar company or changes an industry, right? In many ways, building a startup is part luck. Yes, you got to work hard. Everyone works hard. They do, right? But for every InVision that raises hundreds of millions, is valued at $1 billion and shuts down, there's also Figma, right? And so nobody wants to miss the boat because they came across an asshole. The easiest controllable thing to your destiny is being kind, right? That's the easiest thing. If all the odds in the world are stacked against you, one of the things that you can control is be kind. And so nobody wants to be an asshole. And so they'll make up stuff and tell you to get rid of you because they don't know how else. I think sometimes being honest is the best way if you can say it politely. But in other times, what may have happened is they invested in that space.
Yeah.
And they got blathered. They lost money. That whole portfolio that they invested in is a markdown. Or it could be that, they turn around and invested in the category and just the category is a new thesis for them. So for example, VCs that were not investing in AI, for example, all of a sudden said, hey, for us to build a sustainable long-term growing portfolio, we have to look at AI closely right now because it's the biggest trend coming out of the pandemic, right? And so they're taking a chance. Or it could just be, and I've seen this happen a lot of the times, they're good friends with the founder. Maybe it's a founder that exited or passed them a deal flow and they backed them in the past. And so they're just writing the first check to tag along and be helpful. So it could be a variety of things, and I wouldn't read way too much into it.
Yeah, but I also think that alignment is important, right? Yeah. Now with AngelList or Crunchbase, whatever, what everybody is investing in, but definitely you have an opportunity to find VCs that actually fit your industry.
Yeah.
But to your point about being honest, a lot of times, it doesn't hurt to not say no because you're kind of still in the loop. And it's almost like when you leave the VC's office, it'll be like, yeah, we'll let you know. But a lot of times it's you already know. Just tell me now.
It's I think there's a nice way to say no a lot of the times, right? And I think saying, hey, man, it's not for us. I got to meet this thesis. I hope you can empathize.
But is there a way founders can push for that, you think?
I think
getting a quick no instead of a long maybe.
The best thing that can happen to you is collect no's as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So although I'm an engineer, I started my career in sales. And one of those jobs was selling large enterprise deals at a startup. And they do the same thing, right? So you're at a startup, you're sending large enterprise deals. You're very likable, you're young. These enterprise guys don't want to say no. And so they circle jerk you around and they'll be like, yeah, fly fly here. Meet me in Arkansas and meet me here and meet me there. Come to our facility. They'll give you grand facility tours. But they have no interest. They just don't want to make you feel bad. They're just collecting information. And someday you might turn into something and they want to be front of the line. So I think, as a founder, you need to angle to get a no as quickly as possible. And if somebody says, okay, we'll let you know, I'm like, is there a reason why you can't let me know now? Or are there things you see that might cause you to say no? What are some things that you've seen that might cause you to say no?
Yeah.
And then just shut up.
Yeah.
When you silence,
everything comes out. Everyone's awkward.
Hey guys, real quick. Think about how you found out about this podcast. Maybe you saw it on social or someone sent it to you. The only way this grows is by word of mouth. So if you're willing to help us out by sharing it with others you think would enjoy this podcast as much as you do, it would mean a lot to us. Whether that's writing a review, sharing a tweet, or telling your next door neighbors, that would be amazing. Thanks so much. And now let's get back to the episode.
remember once I was in San Francisco, again, very, very fresh off the boat, entrepreneur. My friend's like, let me introduce you to my friend. You know, he's in your area. And I'm, pitching my real estate tech. And he was like, oh, this is not venture scalable. The TAM's too small. And I didn't really, to my discredit, I didn't really know what he was talking about. But he was like, at the end, he was like, I only invest in things that can return 100 times. And it was actually the first time I've ever heard that. So I got up and I was like, you're looking for things that return 100 times. I mean, I was like, this guy's an idiot, and I left. But then I realized everyone's saying that, your TAM's too small, your TAM's too small. Like, what do you think about that? Because honestly, like, every company starts with a small sliver. Like, they dominate a small sliver of whatever niche they're in first.
Facebook started with an app for social networking app for Harvard. You name it, right? Like Slack was an internal communication tool. Everything starts small and it expands. So when VCs or anyone for that matter say the TAM is too small, I truly believe that there's always an opportunity to expand your TAM. Startups are built in phases, right? You validate the market first. You get that small market to product market fit, meaning high retention, people are using it. You figure out a repeatable, scalable channel. And route to 100 million, once you figure out a repeatable, scalable channel, meaning one kind of customer buying one kind of product, coming through one kind of channel, then you get to a point of scale. And at scale, you're figuring out a new market, maybe selling the same product to a new market, a new geo, or maybe creating a whole new product for the same customer base. So I think the TAM can always expand. But I think what is irking in that conversation is when they say like, oh, this is not venture scale, or it's a lifestyle business. And I used to hear that a lot at Boast. We never wanted to raise, we bootstrap, right? Because in the past been part of failed venture-backed companies. And also it was such a small, obscure idea, automating tax credits for Canadian businesses in Calgary. That's where it started. But now, globally, hundreds of billions of dollars are given in funding for businesses who develop new products and improve existing products. It became a venture scale business because we grew the TAM, right? At scale, you're spending 25% trying new things to grow out of that TAM, and 65 or 75% of the time trying to explode, or rather trying to maximize your share of the existing TAM. So I don't think you can't grow the TAM, but a lot of VCs would say this annoying thing, oh, this is just a lifestyle business. You know what? 90% plus of the startups fail. If you have a good lifestyle business that is generating a couple million at 80% gross margin, 50+% net profit, you can live the best life, right?
Yeah. I mean, two ways I think about, your TAM's not big enough, right? One is they just want to hear what your plan is. It's like, what if Google builds it? It's kind of on the same track, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is your story? How do you see this business? But it's not often asked in that way. It's like, oh, it's too small. Like, I feel like sometimes it's a tactic to see how you would respond. But on the other side, what you say about lifestyle business, like, I used to feel like embarrassed about the fact that I wanted a lifestyle business, but I never wanted $1 billion business. It was just the fact that it was positioned to me like it was such a negative connotation. Like, oh, it's okay. It's okay if you want to build this as a lifestyle business, but it felt condescending.
Because you're building somebody else's definition of success. And I think founders, you need to do two things before you start reaching out to VCs, because you might get offended based on the comments they make. And that's their way. That's the most honesty you'll get when they say it's not venture scale. You know why? VCs raise money from large institutions, wealthy LPs. And usually this is the most riskiest asset. You know why? Because it doesn't liquidate for a long time. The valuations are volatile. Huge failure rate. You've locked your money now, right? It's a very risky asset. And if an LP or an institution carves out a portion of their wealth to put it in a risky asset, they don't want to see like a marginal return. They want to see an outsized return. That risky asset, if they put money in it, as a whole, that fund should return more than their S&P 500, right? Because if it doesn't produce an outsized return, and it just does over a 10-year period, you've locked this money, and that fund just does as well as the S&P 500, then why did you deal with this headache and stress? And also VCs usually raise the next fund for the most before the current fund liquidates. So they need to show that the value of their portfolio is up and up and up, right? The companies they've invested in. And so VCs don't do this portfolio theory. We're like, oh, you know what? Melissa's company can sell for 100. I feel confident. And then Lloyd's company will sell for 400. And this way I'll invest in 10 companies and they'll generate $1 billion. No, they're like, at any given time, 90% of my portfolio is going to fail. One has to become a $10 billion company. That's the math right now. One has to become a $10 billion company and it will return my whole fund. So when founders don't know this and they go and they pitch VCs and they hear the VC say, oh, this is not a venture scale business, they get offended, right? And so your job is to
feel less ambitious.
You feel less ambitious.
That's why you're offended, because you're like, why don't you see my ambition?
Exactly. Now, the founder may not have the ambition, because a lot of the times accelerators, incubators, they coach founders on pitching this big vision. I think the founder market would be better served if they were coached on, do you really want to go in this journey? This is what it entails to build a multi-billion-dollar venture scale company. One of the things there being, most VCs at the bottom of the barrel want a 3x return. At the bottom of even if you're not a 100-bagger, they want a 3x return. If your first valuation is 10 million, there's a lot of deals happening at 30. But once you start raising at 100, 200 million valuation, there's not a lot of acquisitions happening at $500 million, $1 billion. So what are you signing up for? You're signing up for going IPO. So as a founder, before you listen to advice and start going on this journey trying to show a massive TAM, ask yourself, what is my personal definition of success? How much money do I need in my bank to deliver that? And if it is hanging out in Bali, right, surfing or whatever, you know you can live comfortably making $200,000 a year. And so maybe you do a lifestyle business. If you take a lifestyle business to 5 million in revenue and can sell it for 6, 8x, and you bootstrap it, it's like FU money anyway, right? We both have friends who've raised now 100 plus million. After a Series D, each founder only owns like 4 to 5%. And now they have to exit billions. Like they would have to exit for $1 billion to get to that same outcome as the founder who bootstrapped to 5 million and sold.
I mean, it wasn't until I understood that I'm now owning the fact that I have a lifestyle business. Like, if 99% of businesses, if only 1% of businesses are venture backed, then 99 of them are like me, like 99%. That's the majority. It's just the media makes it seem like most startups are venture funded, but they're actually not. So now when a VC comes to me or any sort of investor comes to me, I'm like, oh, I'm actually building a lifestyle business. And I own that. I love that. Then everybody goes away.
I used to not own that, right? Although we bootstrap, my aim was always to build the biggest company, bootstrappable, and then, and see where it goes. And I stretched my personal health and well-being and family life for that, sacrificed everything. I mean, I almost missed the birth of 3 of my kids every time I was at a different office, and I'd get a call saying your wife's in labor, take the next flight and come here, kind of thing. And then after we sold half the company, within a matter of a couple of weeks, I almost died of COVID. And life lost its meaning for me. Life, money, everything lost its meaning. I'm like, what's the point of this money? I chased it. If I'm gone, this money goes to my kids who won't even remember me because I spent no time with them. And then I realized, I left the Bay Area shortly thereafter, moved to Dubai. And I'm like, I want to think about places where people view life and work very differently. Right? Work to live, not live to work. And prior to that, I was like, the rest of my life is in the Bay Area. So yeah, I'm going to put money in venture funds and startups. And even if it's going to lock for 10, 15 years, eventually return. And now my thinking is, man, I want to live the best life I can every single day. And how much cash do I need to deliver that? And so be very deliberate about the kind of life you want to live before you go on this fundraising journey, right? And start exaggerating your TAM and everything else.
And what about when VCs say, don't take a small check from a big fund?
I always say, focus on the metrics, not the optics. The optics won't matter when you're out of money and shutting down. This like signaling like, oh, Sequoia only wrote like a $10,000 check or a $100,000 check in your company out of big checks. Sure, it matters maybe in the grand scheme of things, but right now take the money, right? The optics, what will the optics matter if you're shutting down. The key metric here is, do I have enough runway to last me? And if you have the runway, you can potentially increase your traction, and it won't matter the next time you read money.
But in what situation will a big fund write a small check?
Actually, a lot of big funds write small checks now, right? So what happened in the last few years is they're coming early and early to have the option to look at you. And Recent does it, Sequoia does it. Everyone.
Like, how small are we talking about?
They're right, like, I know funds that will write like pre-seed checks, or they'll bring somebody, a founder, as an EIR. I've been offered a lot. Like when I left the day-to-day of Bose, 3 funds said, hey, why don't you just camp out as an ERR at our office, figure out the next thing. Luckily, this COVID situation put me on a different path of life. But nonetheless, they'll give you a small amount of money and say you're an ERR at the office and figure out the next thing. Because now they'll already like you as a founder, and they give you a small amount of check to get it off the ground, right? And if you get meaningful traction, then they'll invest in the next round. But a lot of people say, oh, don't take that because it's a bad signaling risk.
Yeah, like they don't believe in you enough.
And then worse is if like this big time investor like Sequoia doesn't come into the next round, right? And then it's even worse.
Wow.
Oh, they invested pre-seed, but maybe you don't have enough traction.
Is that true though? Does that happen? Have you seen that happen?
It's signaling, right? Everything in the VC world and in life in general is social proof. Like, let's say you go to sell your product to a large enterprise. You have a relative who works at a competitor or close industry partner, and that relative who's literally in that same position is not using you. The first call they make is, hey, why aren't you using eWebinar? And that's a signaling risk, right? Hey, if your relative who's in my same shoes at another company is not using you, why should I use you? That means something's wrong. It's just a way of thinking.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't have the liberty or the luxury to turn down money, right? You just need it off the ground and you need runway.
Yeah.
And that is king. Cash is king. Get it in the door.
Yeah. But what if when they give you a term sheet that has an expiry date on it?
What's really funny is we do this, right, in deals too. We'll give you a discount and it expires this Friday.
Yeah. At the end of the quarter, you get a discount.
At the end of the quarter, you get a discount. Or if you sign by the 31st, this discount is valid. Why? What changes mysteriously tomorrow?
Yeah.
Nothing changes. It's the same tactic. I hate these used car salesman tactics. Don't do them. Taking on an investment partner is not only a financial decision, it's a life decision, right? You're bringing somebody else at your table. It's going to change the way you behave. The best way to build trust with a founder is to help them make that decision, right? Like in a sale, if I'm selling an enterprise deal, rather than saying you have until Friday to make this call to get the discount, be like, hey man, I need to get my commission, just saying. And you don't have to sign. Like you have zero obligation to sign, but it really would help me if you sign by the 31st. I'm going to send you these 3 introductions. I'll make them for you that have signed up for our product in the last 6 months, and they're seeing great ROI. And here's an ROI study I did specifically for you. Could you talk to them before Friday so we can nudge along the decision? And is there anything else that's keeping you? This is the way you build trust, right? And so when a VC does this, sign the term sheet, give me the ammo so I can sign the term sheet if you're better than everyone else. If you're creating fake FOMO, that's going to destroy the trust already. Like if you've told me like sign the term sheet by this date and you've not helped me get to the decision, and I have other players at the table, you're out.
More reasons for founders to learn how to sell. I'm always talking to founders to say, if you don't know how to sell, you better learn fast.
We're both founders who started our careers in sales. That's why we can empathize.
I mean, what about when VCs say, I'm going to support you all the way. I'm going to be here for you all the way to the IPO. I'm going to be in every round. Is that true, you think? I mean, I've never gone that route, right? But what do you think about that?
A lot of VCs have enough ammo that they fund you all the way. Like Jason Lumpkin,
if they like you.
If they like you, and like is, again, it's part emotion, part data. Yeah. With a startup, what does like mean? You're generating traction, you're growing, and you're respectable with the investors, you're sending updates, the customers love you. Ultimately, if your employees love you, your customers love you, and you have money in the bank, you're a good business, right? But then you could be a complete asshole, and sometimes people just don't want to work with assholes. Nonetheless, larger funds, even some smaller funds like Jason Lemkin, he writes the first check and then he writes the second, and he wants to be part of the journey all the way through because he's like, I invest in founders that are passionate about their space and I'm passionate about them. So I want to spend all my time with a few founders versus spray and pray till the end, right? And so a lot of funds have the ability to fund you all the way to the IPO. But if you break that trust, if you're not exhibiting traction and they have to write off your investment, the worst is they're going to dread spending time with you, right? Nobody wants to like keep spending cycles with a company that's not going anywhere. So they'll ghost you faster than the guy with like one eye and no teeth at the bar they see, right? Like they'll ghost you. And I think the way to deal with this is just be open and honest. Like, I'm not where I need to be. I don't have the traction. I'm not growing. VCs have a fiduciary responsibility to the LPs to see this investment grow. And if they've seen you struggle and struggle and struggle, and now they're at a point of they have to keep writing down this investment, they're not going to keep spending time with you. So the best thing you can do for your business is not trying to be a celebrity in the startup circle, but be a celebrity for your customers. Just grow. Growth and revenue fixes it all.
I agree with that. I think profit fixes everything. But I guess with VC-backed companies, they're more revenue focused.
But revenue profit fixes everything, right? Like I think the COVID boom caused a lot of grow at all costs. But right now, with the interest rates being so high and the market dried up and valuations correcting itself, the public markets have corrected themselves. Profitability is key. Ultimately, the mark of a good business is they keep their customers, and not only they make revenue, but they also make profits.
The other thing that I hear a lot is you need a balanced board of directors. Like, what does that even mean, a balanced board of directors? But isn't that kind of the same as not losing control? So is that contradictory advice?
I think the control, not losing control, is more founder friendly. In the early days, they're like, hey, don't bring on so many investors that you don't have control. And that's a good advice given, because if a founder raises too much money and doesn't have control at Series A, you think if you're like dwindle down because you raise so much money, and a lot of founders, what they do is they go and they'll raise from so many angels and whatnot. And at Series A, let's say if each of the founder owns 5%, no VC is going to invest in that cap table because they're like, how will you play the long game? You'll lose interest. Like, if you own, like, by Series B 1% of your company, what's causing you to stay and move on to the next thing, right? You might just say, you know what, forget it. Like, it's getting hard. I'm like, who cares about this 1%? It's already vested. Let somebody else run it, and I'm out, or like 5%, right? So they're trying to avoid that. But the balanced board is very interesting, right? It's always like, let's bring this independent neutral. Like, you got two founders, you got a VC, or maybe you got two VCs. They want to bring this neutral independent. Just make sure the founders have board control, because when you raise a lot of VC money, you already have this innate obligation. They gave us money, so I need to listen. I feel most neutral third parties don't end up being neutral. They become VC favor, because the VC can do a lot more for them for their career. I think about it. The VC can get them on other boards.
But who usually introduces that third neutral party? Is it the founders or is it the VC?
The VC can introduce the founder. It's like you collectively decide who is the neutral third party, right? And what ends up happening a lot more is this neutral third party has a lot more to gain from the VC than the founder. If they help the founder, yes, they'll have an exit here. But if they help the VC, even if they have the best intentions, they may have aspirations of eventually becoming a partner at a fund or a VC or getting other board seats. So it's just, I feel like that neutral third, typically incentives may not be aligned unless like the founder brings a super founder friendly person that, you know, is a product person. I think one way to break that is to bring a super solid product person who's already working at a company who the founders know really, really well. So just don't bring a neutral third party or say yes to a neutral third party who you as founders don't know already extremely well, and they can't add a value to your business regardless. Ultimately, the goal of a business is to grow in value, right? But what you don't want is to sort of put yourself in a situation that leads to like charades down the road.
Yeah. And how about when VCs want to refer someone more experience than you.
Yeah. There's always this happens, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's well intended, I guess.
Everything,
in theory.
Nothing grinds my gears more than raise money. Now it's time to bring seasoned execs. You have an example, right? Your bootstrap company. You brought a seasoned exec. What was that experience like?
Not good.
Why wasn't it
biggest
good?
financial mistake that I've made. They just don't know how to move fast like a startup. They are used to working with a lot of resources, and we don't have them. They're used to working with companies with credibility where other companies just do things for them. Whereas as a small startup, you're begging people to work for you, and they just don't have that skill set.
I've only failed over and over working with big company execs, seasoned execs, shiny logos. I've now have this firm rule: hire for trajectory, not tenure. If you keep hiring for tenure over trajectory, you'll become the very thing you set out to disrupt. Seasoned execs need to hire people to do the job. I've talked to some of the best C-suite folks, and they all eventually admit that, yeah, I can't execute at this level and this space without hiring people and having people around the table, and you don't have that liberty, right? Because think about it, you just raise money, you need somebody to roll up their sleeves and execute. But if somebody comes in and says, I need a rebrand, or I need a new website, or I need to onboard these 3 people before I execute, you lose a lot of time. And then what inadvertently happens with people from shiny logos is PowerPoint pontification makes way for progress. Velocity is the currency of high growth startups.
You know what grinds my gears the most is back then I couldn't raise money. Everybody was saying no. And in order to try to, save their time and mine, I would tell them, hey, I'm super early. This is where I am. I barely have any revenue. And, being super upfront just so they could reject my meeting. Every single warm intro, hot intro, you name it, would say, yeah, it's okay. We invest in startups of all stages, only to say after my pitch that I was too early and that I should come back with more traction. Was the thing that I could never get over. It was so frustrating because it was also soul crushing because I'm like, I told you this, but you just want it, you want just information. I don't even know where that comes from. I
think it goes back to what we were talking earlier, right? They want the option to be nice to you and be in your network. And they want to give you their time because
But I'm trying to give them a way out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, don't take my time. Don't take your time.
But who knows, you might turn into the next Mark Zuckerberg, right? And tied to that also is this irking term that's interesting. And I've come to realize that anyone, if it's not an F, yeah, it's a no. So anyone who says it's interesting means dude, this thing sucks, but I don't have the fortitude to tell you it sucks. So just move on. That's what I see that as, right? I think more traction is a hard one, right? Because you'll turn around and see they invested in a company with 0 traction. They invested in a company at the seed stage on an idea in the generative AI space, for example. And you're like, what the hell? I have way more traction. They have something they believe in with the founders that causes them to take more risk in that opportunity than yours. And I think, if somebody gives you this dance of show me more traction or come back when you have more traction, less traction, just move on. They're not really interested. But in the bucket with the same as we're interesting, send them updates every so often and keep them in the loop. And if they find it interesting, they will find them really interesting. If it's an F, yeah, they'll spend more time with you. They'll reach out. But otherwise, just cross them off and, find another set of investors, right? Because it's like you have to kiss 1,000 frogs like in sales. True. Before you find that one prince.
Yeah, and actually this has happened to me a few times where I'm pitching the VC. And I've been a salesperson since I was 19. And multiple times they'd be like, you know what? You're a great salesperson. You should work for one of my portfolio companies. Again, soul crushing. Here I am trying to pitch my idea as a CEO, as a founder who's working super hard, not getting a ton of traction, not know if I can make payroll. And you're not even telling me no. You're kind of telling me I should just work for one of your portfolio companies as a salesperson. I don't know if that was unique to me or if it's happened to anyone else. But
it's happened to a good friend of mine. I've introduced her to 3 people and she's brilliant. And literally the feedback, 2 out of 3 people. And this has to be more common with women, right? She comes to me and she's like, dude, he said he barely listened to what I said. He was late. And this happened twice to her, 2 out of the 3 intros I made. And then I feel embarrassed. I'm like, why the hell did I make this intro? And they closed with like, I think Lloyd just introduced you so you can just come work for us or work for one of our portfolio companies. Another friend of mine has 3 kids working on an AI startup, and she gets asked the question, hey, how are you going to balance working on this startup and managing 3 kids? If we're asking questions like this, come work for my portfolio company, or like how are you going to manage home life, put that in the bucket. Like have a giant bucket of asshole, put that there and just move on.
I actually had an investor ask me, are you married? And I was like, no, like I didn't expect this question. And he's like, okay, good, because it would never work.
Asshole bucket, write the name, share it. Don't share it publicly because, I would recommend not publicly chastising somebody. You don't need the drama. But put that in your bucket. And whenever your close circle is looking for intros, don't ever make any intro. Yeah. You might come across a magical company that, is going to be the next freaking, I don't know, Uber or Facebook. And every founder has a network of founders or people they know that are really solid. Just don't refer them. Like, caution other people. Like, you must have the no list. You must have the asshole list in life, right?
It's one of those things, though, that it's so shocking when you hear that you don't really know how to respond. It's only like in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I don't know if that was like an appropriate question.
Right now, I think sometimes you earn the right after you've had some success, and then you get more ballsy. In the early days when people would say lifestyle business or like all these things, I'd take it to heart and like not say anything. Now I just ask like, hey, does your wife work?
Yeah.
How does she manage that? Or
that's why we're having this conversation, right?
Are you this misogynistic with her as well? Right? Like just straight up call their bullshit, right? Like straight up. Like, but honestly, some battles are not worth it at all. Have an asshole bucket mentally, move on, have a no bucket, and then have the ones you love and respect. Life is about, you bring a lot of calm in your life if you say more no's than yeses, right? Just be super, super targeted. I think one of the frustrating things for me is come back when you have a lead investor.
Ugh, that is so annoying.
Or who else is investing? Because
classic.
It's like nothing, I don't completely believe, but definitely if there are other suckers that are more notable than me, then I'll jump on the train. And this is a hard one. Sometimes they mean well in the sense, they're not a lead investor
but
themselves.
A lot of VCs say that up front. I don't lead.
I don't lead, right? Yeah. And if they're genuinely not a lead investor, then ask them the question like, what are you looking for exactly? You want somebody, you need the validation from an actual lead investor. You need somebody else to set the terms, and you need to see the terms. Are you ready to invest right now? Meeting with investors is a sales process.
Yeah.
Right? Have a funnel of people you talk to. In week 1, make sure you talk to like 40, 50 people, right? You want to bring everyone along at the same time. Talk to 40, 50 investors as best as you can in 2 weeks, right? And that's your phase 1 or whatever, qualify. You want to get as many no's as possible, because the ones that get to the next phase are the ones you both really like each other. And what you want to get out of that is you've disqualified a bunch, and the people that you have at the table, they want to see your data room, your financials. They want to know about you, right? And then the week 3 is customer references, demos, talking to team members. And week 4 is close. You want to bring everyone along at the same time. And that brings a lot of calm. Run your fundraise process like a sales process. Imagine like a lot of founders, they don't do that. And they bring so much stress because it feels like they're always raising, and then you're distracted from the business, right? So bring calm to yourself by running it like a sales process.
But I think to your point of what are you looking for? I mean, it is such a good question to collect data points.
Yeah.
Right. And also things like, what do you think of my business? Like, do you have any feedback about my business? Is there any feedback about my pitch?
And even like go a step further and ask them, give me like one reason you think this is absolutely going to fail. I won't take it to heart, but it'll do me so good that I'll respect you forever. And give me 2 reasons one or 2 reasons why you think this would work, right? And just have a dialogue. If you're in the meeting anyway, you may as well make the most of it, right? And I think a lot of investors, they don't lead, and it's a fair point. Find a lead. But in the early days, I mean, Do you need a lead? I don't know.
I mean, what about the investors that want you to raise more and grow faster?
Move on. Raise raise more and grow faster. We saw what happened during the pandemic boom, which wasn't really a boom, but a black swan event that pulled forward a little bit of traction from coming years. So created a little bit of artificial traction. We saw this in 2008. We saw this during the dot-com. Do not ever take somebody's money to grow at all costs. Be methodical. The worst is you don't have product market fit and you're spending money to acquire users who are not engaged. It's empty calories. It feels good, but it's not good for you.
What about when investors say, what's your moat? Every time I get asked that, I'm like, my moat is I'm doing it. Like, anybody can do this, obviously, but they're not going to.
Especially like you just came up with the idea or like you just started, getting some, what's your moat? How do you answer that?
I can't remember. It's just so long ago, but I probably just stumbled at some stupid answer. But now I'm like, there's a bunch of great ideas out there. But to have an idea that you personally as a founder are invested in, that you're investing the next 5 to 10 years in, is actually extremely difficult. So my moat is actually, I'm an expert here. With eWebinar, I've done 1,000 webinars. I know this problem super well. Here's all the competition. Here's I'm going to do different. And I'm doing it. Of course, other people can copy, but they're not. Like, I'm the one right here, right now.
So I don't know if you saw this viral video between the senator and the founder of TikTok, CEO of TikTok.
No, I didn't.
He keeps asking him if he has any connection to the Chinese government.
He was Singaporean.
And he's like, no, I'm Singaporean. So he asked him the same question in 5-6 ways, right? Do you have any connection with the Chinese Communist Party? Do you have any other nationality? He asked him the question in like 6-7 different ways.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah. And everyone's like, this senator is so dumb. He's racist. VCs sometimes do the same thing. They're not dumb and they're not racist. They just want to know the truth. Like, how are you going to answer that? They just want to know if you're speaking the truth or not. And they try to do this vetting as much as possible early in the relationship, right? Because they want to get to a yes or a no. Because as you get to the term sheet and beyond, they don't want to be interrogating you. They want to move with trust, right? Like, you interrogate a partner, right? You're somebody you want to marry or somebody you want to date. You want to get to know as much as possible in the early days. Because the last thing you want to know is once you're in bed, you're having to sleep with one eye open. Nobody wants to do that. So they do all the vetting up front. And I think with the moat, what they're trying to say is they know you're an early stage startup. How are you going to build a moat? Have you thought about network effects? Have you thought about making the product sticky? Have you thought about building a community? Have you thought about like leveraging data to create a product where customers don't want to leave, right? Are you leveraging technology and your customer base in a way that will not only create more customers for you, but it'll also create a brand making you preferred and sticky? That's what they want to know. And how are you going to execute on that path versus saying, oh, we're going to implement network effects. Don't throw me a buzzword. How? How? Like, what specifically in your product is going to lend itself to a network effect? Or are we going to make our product sticky? What specifically? Are you incorporating things like mounting loss, where people, the more they use it, the harder it is to leave because they have to integrate their data and they're getting some insight? So just be very specific and show them the path. And I think that's the way to go about it.
But I think this is where raising later makes a lot of sense. Because at that point, you can actually talk about that moat and how you've done some of those things and how you're so far ahead of any new competition. Because that would be my answer now, is we're 3 years ahead of anyone else that might want to build this thing to where we are. Because people can copy where you're at, but they cannot copy where you're going.
100%, right? They can, it's funny at Boast when we did this deal with the growth equity fund, we got a lot of press. Then this competitor out of nowhere came and raised a bunch of money that pivoted into our space. They showed quick growth. But you know what? They can copy your ideas. They can't copy your execution and your integrity. Now this company has been trying to raise at a 90% discount on valuation, and it looks like they're near under. So I think that is very key. You gotta keep that in mind.
Have you ever been called too emotional?
Yeah, all the time. I just say this. Everything you buy, whether it's an Oreo cookie or a piece of gum or a software product, It's an emotional decision. Until the day robots are buying from robots and doing business with robots, every business is part data and part emotion. And if it wasn't part emotion, you could just plot a bunch of numbers in an Excel sheet and expect it to run linear, right? Like, okay, you know what? I'm going to project up and to the right, hockey stick. We're just going to put a few variables here and it's going to play out exactly. It doesn't, because humans are doing business with humans. Mike Tyson has a famous quote: everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face. The only thing you can do is move fast and iterate along the way.
So this brings me back to a story. I was trying to raise money, not just from VCs, but also friend and family. And one of my friends just exited. He said, if you get here with Spacio, my last company, I'll give you 25K. And I got there, I called him, and then he like changed what he said. Like he just said I didn't have enough. And I was like, bro, what the hell? And then he was like, Melissa, you're too emotional. It's making you look bad. And I'm like, you lied to me, and that's making you look bad.
Asshole bucket again.
Yeah, exactly.
One experience puts you in the asshole bucket, right? Like, as we close out here, I think a couple of things come to mind that are so common. One is like investors asking you for valuation.
Or how do you justify that valuation?
How do you justify that valuation? In the early days, it's wild ass guesses, right? And I think you got to meet in the middle with the investor and set a reasonable valuation, because you're signing up for a valuation that's 12 months later. You know the number of companies that signed up for unicorn, decacorn, like 5-10 billion valuations that now are in a position that not only did they not meet that valuation, but they blew up a bunch of money. And if they raise again, they would wipe out the whole cap table. So they're going under, they're selling assets. So don't do that. Come up with a reasonable valuation. There's lots of benchmarks you can read on, like average seed valuation, average Series A, Series B valuations. Google search them. Chances are you're not an anomaly. So stop benchmarking yourself against unicorns. Any valuation discussion can't be, I want to be an anomaly, because you have to meet that valuation, right? With startups, what happens is you come out of an accelerator, they give you a valuation. That's not your valuation based on revenue right now or any discounted multiple, right? That's your valuation maybe 12, 18 months down the road. Can you reasonably meet that? By signing up for $1 billion valuation, what you're saying is, you know what, I'm going to grow to 100 million in 2 years. So just see what's reasonable, because it's always better to under-promise and over-deliver. Just make sure you have board control, you have enough control, the right partners are at the table, and you're optimizing for yourself. And keep the valuations reasonable, because valuation always will take care of itself, right? As long as, I think most VCs at the Series A want to get like 20% of your company. So know those benchmarks and make sure that the path you're going on is, by the time you exit, you and your co-founder still have more than 50% of the company, 60% of the company. Don't optimize so much for the valuation that you can't meet it and you have to bust anyway. Because eventually, if you play the game of, I want to get to 100 million ARR, the valuation will take care of itself.
Yeah. And the last one that I hear a lot is, oh, let me know how I can help. Like shuffle you out the door. Let me know.
This again ties to VCs not wanting to be in your asshole bucket, and they want optionality of, hey, when you decide, or when you mysteriously end up being that super founder, you will come and talk to them. So I think the best way to put that to test is ask them for a specific intro or specific piece of advice. Again, I'm not pricking your brain. I'm not asking for a blind intro. Be very, very specific and see if they'll help. If you ask a very specific question to somebody who can be helpful, the chances of them being helpful is a lot higher, and it may start a relationship, right? It's a way to test. And if they ghost you, then you have the asshole bucket anyway, right? Yeah. But, a lot of people, it's a two-way street, right? A lot of people will end up down this path of the VC or the founder checking in on LinkedIn or email like once a year, right? I think the onus is on you. Nothing gets done last minute. Build a relationship now. If somebody says, let me be helpful, ask them for a very specific piece of help.
Another great sales tactic there, because that's what you would do in sales. Ask for something specific, but also another way to leverage your investor updates is send them to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? Ask for permission to stay in touch. Another sales tactic. Is it okay if I email you once a quarter? Like, they're not going to say no.
Exactly.
But that's how the relationship starts.
Staying top of mind with any brand, with any product in sales. This whole thing, the whole world is sales. Whether your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your employer, it's all sales. What you need to do is be positively top of mind, right? What is a preferred brand? You want to be a preferred brand for somebody. And what that is engaging with somebody consistently well through multiple touch points over time, and you become a preferred brand.
So what is your hot take from today's conversation?
Let's start with yours.
Okay, my hot take is don't let anyone, VC, family and friend investor, any investor, lead you on. Like, you remember that movie, He's Just Not That Into You?
Yeah.
If you don't get a check, they're not interested. Keep doing what you're doing, build your business, get to profitability. And as you get closer to that, you hold all the cards.
My hot take is every relationship is a two-way street. Just because somebody's asking a weird question doesn't mean they're being an asshole or they're dumb. They're actually trying to find out how you think, because that's their way of doing due diligence in the early days. And they want to do as much of that as possible, because once you're around the table with this person, they want to operate on pure trust. So have empathy for that equation. Also understand what kind of return a VC needs to generate to return to their fund. And so if you're not interesting to them, you're not going to hit those benchmarks, likely that deal is not happening. So I think every relationship starts with mutual empathy, and starting with empathy is the only way to go.
And that's it for today's episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll hit the subscribe button to the Unicorn Porn podcast on your favorite podcast app. Head over to our website, UnicornPrn.com, to see the show notes of every episode. Unicorn Porn is spelled UnicornPrn. That's UnicornPrn without the O. You can also join our mailing list to be notified of new episodes or when we have hot gossip to share. We promise to only share things you'll actually care about.
If you have topics you want us to rip apart, perhaps you got something you always wanted to say but didn't have the cojones to do it, we'll do it for you. Just connect with us on LinkedIn, Lloyd Lobo and Melissa Kwan.